Bueno, buenas tardes a todos. Buenas noches, depende del lugar en donde estén. Bueno, un placer. Mi nombre es Antonio Gómez Cavalini. Bueno, ya nos conocemos, hemos estado y participado en otras encuentros. No prendo la cámara por una cuestión personal, no estoy con una situación para poder prender la cámara, pero no quería dejar de estar en este inicio de la sesión de PROB para clínicos y bueno, centros integrales de tratamiento. Hemos tenido bastantes inscriptos realmente, así que seguramente va a haber gente que se va a ir sumando y que va a estar participando de acá a la brevedad. Pero bueno, no queremos demorarnos más tiempo en función de la gente que ingresó de manera puntual y bueno, por eso estamos grabando esta sesión para que también la misma se pueda ver luego en la plataforma educativa virtual que tiene la coalición. Luego les estaremos haciendo llegar a todos los que se han inscrito y participan de este evento eh, la contraseña y el link, que creo que algunos ya han recibido, pero lo haremos para aquellos que se han inscrito o participado, lo han hecho en estos días. Van a recibir nuevamente la clave y el usuario para que puedan ingresar y ahí ver un montón de otra información que tenemos, ¿no? Que la gente, que Prob, Mark y Sasha y su equipo nos han enviado como videos, artículos y demás. Esto va a quedar, tanto esta sesión como la sesión que hicimos para los líderes de las NMO hace 2 semanas, en la plataforma para que se pueda ser consultada y utilizarla como base para futuras acciones y capacitaciones de PROB en las Américas. Es en este sentido que, bueno, formalmente les doy la bienvenida. Gracias, Mark, gracias, Sasha, por el interés y por el trabajo que vienen haciendo y por también confiar en nosotros y trabajar articuladamente y conjuntamente en estos temas. Vuelvo a insistir que para mí es algo central la posibilidad de poder tener a esta herramienta funcionando. Yo estoy convencido de que el manejo de la data, el manejo de la información y la sistematización de la información es importante para incidir en nosotros como miembros de organizaciones, incidir en las decisiones de las políticas públicas de los diferentes gobiernos y así también poder mejorar el tratamiento para la hemofilia. Así que la verdad que estoy convencido que eso es central, convencido que esta herramienta, con otras que también están disponibles de la Federación Mundial y de otros líderes, estamos en el camino correcto, ¿no? Así que agradezco al ímpetu de llevar adelante el PROB en las Américas y seguramente Mark y Sasha y todo el equipo no va a ser la última vez. Vamos a seguir trabajando e insistiendo y los vamos a seguir molestando en algún sentido para seguir haciendo estos entrenamientos y estas acciones de formación para todos. Así que bueno, no les robo más tiempo, les agradezco nuevamente a todos y bueno, los dejo con Mark y su equipo para hacer la presentación.
Hopefully you are seeing my screen now, and everything is working. So it's a great pleasure to have the opportunity to share with you a little bit about the PROBE study, as well as our work in collaboration with the World Federation of Hemophilia. So we have a short program this evening, and we have built in time for questions. I thought I would begin with an introduction of PROBE for those that aren't familiar, and then I will introduce the rest of our speakers in our program for the rest of the evening. So I think we all have come to know over the last few years that real-world data is incredibly important for us to advance care and to allow us to move our advocacy beyond emotion and our personal stories, but to arguments grounded in evidence. And to do that, we need to be able to provide data not only on the clinical outcomes, but also on what it means to live with hemophilia and the complications of hemophilia. So over the past decade, we have been working with many of you and other patient organizations around the world to build a patient outcomes reporting instrument that allows us to capture the experience of living with hemophilia. So you can see a brief timeline of our work from the very first meeting that we had a decade ago in 2012, and the validation work that we've done over the course of the decade that brings us to this year. I'll talk about some of these steps in just a moment. But I want to begin with saying thank you, because within the Coalition of the Americas, 4 countries have been with us on this journey since the very beginning and have supported us in the data collection that was essential for the validation of the probe instrument. And so thank you to Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, and Venezuela, who have been integral partners throughout this process. And now that we've completed the validation work, we have begun the phase of real-world data collection and are doing this now in collaboration with the World Federation of Hemophilia as they launch the World Bleeding Disorder Registry. So here you see the global team. In addition to the patient organizations, which I've already identified, this is the global team that has been working over the past year. You're going to hear from a couple of us today. We have both patient representatives as well as experts from academic institutions in developing patient outcome measures. So I'll be sharing with you Alexandra or Sasha Kucher, who many of you have perhaps communicated with, is our research data manager, will be presenting, and then Federico Germini, who is the project lead at McMaster University, where our database and our IT team and much of our research is actually housed, is with us also. So first, just a brief reminder of the probe questionnaire.
Mark, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Part of your slides are cut, at least on my side, but I see that someone has the same problem.
Oh, really?
The bottom and the right side.
Let me see what I am doing here.
Perfect.
Yep. I'm sorry, I was sharing the wrong, I apologize. I'm sharing the wrong screen. Okay, so we're good now. Okay, thank you for commenting. Oh, how do I go back? Just a second. So the major domains of the probe questionnaire include pain, independence, education, employment, family life, and mobility. And essentially they answer the questions that all of us that live with a bleeding disorder have on our mind. How does hemophilia affect my ability to get an education, to get a job, to have a family, to do the things in life that others that don't have a bleeding disorder are able to do? And so we developed a set of questions that actually capture this. So PROBE is a 30-question questionnaire that collects demographic data, information about health problems, hemophilia-specific metrics, and then we also include the Euroqual EQ5D instrument, which is a generic measure of general health. And this also then allows us to collect data, not just from individuals with hemophilia, but we collect data from the general population of individuals that don't have hemophilia, so we can compare and benchmark. PROBE has been developed and validated in a web platform, on an app, as well as in paper. We've published a series of manuscripts. You saw these on the timeline previously, but we have demonstrated both the feasibility, the content validity, the reliability, the psychometric properties, and cross-culturally validated PROBE. So PROBE meets all of the tests that a regulator or a public health authority would be looking for in terms of using a PRO, or a patient-reported outcome instrument for data collection. We've also now had the opportunity to start looking into the data, and we've published a series of manuscripts looking at areas of current importance, the issues that are experienced by those with mild and moderate hemophilia, non-severe hemophilia, sexual health and intimacy, which was identified as a priority topic that was previously understudied and unreported, was one of our manuscripts. And then most recently, we've demonstrated the feasibility of integration with a national registry, and Federico will be talking with you more about that in just a moment. As I mentioned before, the World Federation of Hemophilia has allowed us to collaborate with them as part of the World Bleeding Disorder Registry. So Tung is joining us from WFH, and she's going to share with us a little bit more, and I will leave it to her. But we're trying to build a broad collaboration, not only to support the work of the PROBE study, but to support the Coalition of the Americas and others around the world, so that we can tell a 360-degree view of what it means to live with hemophilia, both from the clinical as well as the patient experience. You'll hear a little bit more about this as well, but PROBE now is developed as an app or a web framework. And so if you go to our website, myprobe.org, or you download the PROBE app, you have the opportunity to pick your country and your language. You can see here that I'm showing Mexico. We have developed, or will develop, if it's not already there for your country, a personalized landing page so that you can promote your national organization. And then you'll see on the right side of the screen, after you make those selections, here's an example which Federico will talk about, of where there's a national patient registry, and you can use your credentials for your national patient registry and participate. So we're trying to build a very simple system where you only have to input data once, and it serves multiple goals. Similarly, here's an example from Barbados. And Barbados has established a linkage with the World Bleeding Disorder Registry. And to the extent your center has already participated in the World Bleeding Disorder Registry, you can use your Wpdr credentials and participate in PROBE, so that it really is just one place. And you can, and Tung will talk about how you can go from the Wpdr registry to PROBE. PROBE truly is global now. We have launched in over 100 countries in the world and over 45 languages. So PROBE is available throughout Latin America in Portuguese and Spanish, and each of the languages is localized to your country. So to the extent that there are any linguistic nuances between the countries, there is a localized version available. You can see this is just a heat map of the collection. We've had a little over 8,000 individuals participate in PROBE so far, and you can see that that South America, Latin America has been a heavy participant in participating in the studies early on, and we're eager for that participation to continue. And this summarizes, this data is a little bit dated and doesn't include the clinical study data, which is not available as a part of our public database. But PROBE is being used in a number of research clinical studies that is embargoed for release in the global database until those studies are completed. But we're well over 8,000 records to date, both for hemophilia A, hemophilia B. You can see we have a nice collection of carriers, and about a third of our data are our healthy controls that allows us to benchmark. PROBE has been validated in individuals age 11 and up. And so we believe PROBE now really can serve the full range of needs for data collection, and by having a consistent tool, it can support market authorization and product registration by providing relevant data collection on outcomes important to patients. It can support advocacy at the national level to support insurance coverage or advocacy with the Ministry of Health, as well as technology assessments if your country is evaluating the introduction of a new technology or a new treatment product within your company or country, and you'll have data to compare. And then in the clinical setting, which Federico will also talk about now, we're building clinical applications where the individual patient data can be evaluated against benchmark data around the world so that it can be used both to support clinical decision-making and shared decision-making on whether or not there should be changes in therapy, perhaps what the benefits might be of changing to a prophylactic regime if available, and a patient has not chosen to do so. So we'll talk about some of these, but we believe PROBE, particularly in combination with the World Bleeding Disorder Registry, is designed to support patients individually, national member organizations of the World Federation and their advocacy goals, can integrate with bleeding disorder registries so data doesn't have to be input multiple times, can support drug registration studies, clinical trials, can support hemophilia treatment centers and individualized research. It can support all of us in our advocacy roles. So today you're going to hear a little bit more about each of these, and we'll provide you some examples. Since 2020, we've had a range of specific advocacy campaigns. And you see some of the examples of here where the data has been used in Brazil and Colombia in the region, as well as other countries, Australia, Kyrgyzstan, and Poland. We've linked not only with Mexico, but our registry is now linked with the Canadian registry and the Austrian registry, in addition to the World Bleeding Disorder Registry. We've been using the probe data submissions to support access to new and novel technologies, new products in Canada, Ireland, and the US. And we have a number of new projects underway, which hopefully we'll be reporting data on in the near future in Australia, Barbados, Canada, Jamaica, Thailand, and the UK. And we would love to include your country or your center if you have some ideas of research. So with that, our program today is, as I mentioned, Federico will begin by sharing information on how a registry can integrate and the clinical utility of PROBE. Then Sasha will talk about some of the collaboration examples that I just mentioned. She'll provide you examples from Kyrgyzstan and Poland, which were done previously. And then Elizabeth will talk about Barbados and Jamaica, a couple new projects that we're launching. And I apologize, I had Donna Coughlin here, but Tung is with us tonight from the World Federation of Hemophilia, and we'll talk about MyWBDR and our integrations with MyWBDR. So with that, I'm going to stop, and I'll turn it over to Federico and allow him to pick up. And please, we'll have opportunity for questions as we proceed. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well and can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for confirming. I'm Federico Germini, an assistant professor at McMaster University. And today I will present about the integration of PROBE in clinical research, registries, and in clinical activity. I will start apologizing. I'm sick. So I might not shine. I think that the main problem will be my voice, and so I apologize for that with the interpreter. Luckily enough, the rest of you will hear her. I will briefly introduce different solutions that we have for incorporating PROBE in a study or in a registry, and then how the PROBE questionnaire can be customized to meet different needs in clinical research. And then lastly, we'll talk about what are the ongoing studies and registry integrations with a focus on the PROBE study, which is a study about the use of PROBE in clinical activity. In terms of incorporating PROBE in a study or in a registry, we have three different options. The first one is the one that Mark presented for Mexico, for example, and is the use of a single sign-on technology. Then other options are the creation and use of study-specific and participant-specific links. The single sign-on option is something that you might be well familiar with. So these are the normal two options that we have for logging in into Probe. So you can either do it as a guest, or you can do it as a registered user, creating credentials and an account. So with an email or an account name and the password. And this will allow you, as compared to the guest option, where your data are not connected with completions that you might do later in time. Logging in will allow you to see, to link your data over time, and as we will see, also to trend them. Now, a further option which we proposed and piloted in Canada and then implemented in other countries is the single sign-on option. Single sign-on means basically what you do often, probably, when you log in into your online favorite newspaper, logging in with your Facebook or Google or Apple or whatever credentials you already have. You don't want to create a new password just for the newspaper service, and you use the password and username that you already have. And that's what we propose to do for CBDR. So when you select Canada as a country, you will have also the option to log in with MyCBDR. And then you will see, after hitting on that option, you will see a pop-up window where you'll input your email and password. This will only be checked on the MyCBDR side, so the Canadian Bleeding Disorder Registry. We will, as a probe, we will not receive any data about the credentials, so no email for us, no password. We will only receive an alphanumeric code that means nothing to us. But that on the MyCBDR side, when we serve them back the data, will allow them to link the probe data with the registry data. This is already happening also with Mexico, as we anticipated, and also with the World Bleeding Disorder Registry, as Tung will say later. And it allowed us, for example, to use probe embedded to registry data, for example, to compare the quality of life of people before and after switching to emicizumab, together with other data that we had in the Canadian Bleeding Disorder Registry, or say to compare the quality of life of people on a standard half-life product with a different product. Another option, a bit more structured, is the use of study-specific links. In this case, the potential participant of a study will receive a URL, so basically a link, and after hitting on the link, they will be asked to consent to the study and to complete the probe questionnaire. This is an example of an email that we're sending to CBDR participants. As you can see, they will have a link here, and hitting on it, they will consent to the study and complete the questionnaire. Now, the advantage of using this is that not only we can offer whatever login option we want, including the single sign-on, but we will also be able to tweak the questionnaire, and we will discuss this later. The third option is the creation of study and participant-specific links. This is the less cumbersome for the patient. It does require a bit of more work on the researcher side. The research team is given access to a study interface where they can select their study if they have more than one ongoing, and then they can input a user ID. This will be an ID that is unique to their patient, that again will mean nothing to us, but that on their side, the study team use to link the probe data once we serve them back to them with other data that they have for that study. So say they are collecting other information about baseline characteristics, other outcomes, whatever they're collecting, they will be able to match with the probe data. The participant this time will receive a link, and they will not have to log in, and this will allow longitudinal completion of the probe questionnaire. In both these cases, the creation of study-specific link and study and participant-specific links we will also be able to customize the questionnaire. So not only we will be able to control the login options, as I mentioned, for example, we're now conducting a study where we are comparing the hemophilia activity list questionnaire with probe, and we're sending these only to CBDR participants, so patients enrolled in the Canadian Bleeding Disorder Registry, and we're asking them to only use the single sign-on option because we don't want to lose data that could not be linked to CBDR. Or for example, there will be a new study starting soon in UK, and they requested only to offer a login as a guest to their participant. They don't want them to be able to log in for privacy issues and for compliance with their REB and privacy regulation. Another option to customize the questionnaire, the questionnaire in the study, will be to add questions, and this is what happened already in our work with some NGOs, and Sasha will present on this, I believe. For example, again, what is happening in our comparison with the hemophilia activity list. At the first completion, the participants will complete probe and the hemophilia activity list questionnaire together. So we're able to add or remove questions. And we're also able to administer different versions of the questionnaire depending on the study timeline. For example, a very common option is to have a full probe at time 0, and then have a shorter version in time 1 and 2, where you don't want to ask again to the same participant if they have hemophilia A or B, because you already know that. And as we will see in the example of the Vancouver study, we are also, in some cases, adding questions at the end of the study for a different kind of evaluations. These are the ongoing study on registry integrations that we have so far. So in terms of registry, we have Canada, Mexico, Austria, and the World Bleeding Disorder Registry. As Mark mentioned, the World Bleeding Disorder Registry has been used, for example, in Barbados, where not only you are interested in contributing to this project, but also you don't want to reinvent the wheel and create a brand new registry. They are participating to the Wpdr, and they're using these to single sign-on in probe, and then also collect data on patient-reported outcome through our tool. These are instead the studies that are ongoing. The the study in Vancouver on the use of probe in clinical activity that I will present soon, the hemophilia activity list, and the Learning to Live study in the UK. And in terms of NGOs, probe worked extensively with NGOs, but these are two examples of organizations that used this new service to add questions that they felt important for their advocacy activity. And Sasha will explain. I will now briefly introduce the VancProbe study. The objective of this study, as you might guess, this is a study that was carried out that is being carried out in Vancouver, with the objective of exploring the feasibility of using probe during routine clinical care, with the aim of enabling patients to provide outcome measures to clinical teams and to improve the quality of their hemophilia care, to discuss what is really important to them during the annual review. The study team was composed by Dr. Shannon Jackson and a team of other clinicians and patients that contributed together with us, probe investigators. In terms of methods, what has been done is the addition of 6 vocational questions to the probe questionnaire, the creation of a short form, as I mentioned, of the questionnaire to be administered after the first time, and then enabling the participant to trend their results over time, compare the results with other participants, and share the results with the clinic. There's some background noise, sorry. If you can mute yourself, that would help. So as I was saying, we also enable participants to share the results with the study team, which in this case was also the team that was following them clinically. Last thing is that they collected feedback from the participant to evaluate how to proceed in the second phase of the study, and I'll discuss also this. So here you can see how we created a patient dashboard that is now on the website, for now only available in English, but to all the users. And here you can see how they can trend, for example, in this case, the EQ5D score from January 2020 to August 2022. They can also select previous survey, share them again, but we will also see how they can do this at the end of a questionnaire. Here is an example of how they can compare their score, probe score, EQ5D score, and the visual analog scale score, that are all measures of quality of life, and can compare them to a population that is similar to them. So in this case, similar in terms of age, baseline disease, treatment, and location. This is an example of the sharing function. So not only they can share from the dashboard as I showed you previously, but at the end of the probe questionnaire, they're directly invited to share their results, and they can do so with whoever they want, copying the link or using the send via email function that will open their email client. Or if this is done in the frame of a study, as in the case of the Vanc probe study, they will also be able to share directly with the clinic with just one click, since we already have the address to send it to. The study team sent link to 102 potential participants. 54 of these completed the survey, so 53 completion rate. And 83% of them were able to independently complete and share the survey without any technical assistance. After the clinic visit, roughly half of them provided a 10-question post-clinic evaluation, and all of them but one indicated the probe covered all the areas that they felt were important to address, that they were willing to take the questionnaire again, and that they felt that reviewing the probe responses had a very beneficial impact on their care. So, based on these positive results and on the fact that we proved the feasibility of this project, we now moved to a second phase, and we're working on the design of a new dashboard to address some limitations that came up discussing with our study team and the patients. The main limitations were that only the scores were trended over time and compared with other participants, and the users could not change the population they wanted to compare to. Okay, so it was only numbers. The probe score, the EQ5D score mean a lot to us as researchers, might mean something to as clinicians. Sometimes they mean very little to patients. That's what we learned. And they were also not very happy not being able to compare themselves to different populations. So as I showed you, there was an age cluster, a country, a disease category that could not be changed in their comparison. So now we moved to the design of a new dashboard, and this is brand new. I think it's a surprise also for Mark and the rest of the team. But this is an example of how the new dashboard will be. It will embed all the 9 core questions from the probe study, from the core questions from the probe questionnaire, which are the ones that contribute to the score, on top of the scores that I already mentioned, and also the EQ5D questions that the patients found very relevant to discuss at their clinical assessment. The filters this time will be dynamic, so they will be able to select different hemophilia types, or also to compare themselves to people without hemophilia, to select different countries or regions, and different age categories to compare to. They will also be offered a summary of what changed as compared to the previous completion. So why their probe score improved or worsened, and which questions changed since last time. And this is how each question will be displayed. Depending on the type of question, they will either see something that is similar to the comparison of the probe score. In this case, it's just the number of days of school or work that they had to skip, which is something we learn patients are very interested in. And so they will be able to see how they did in the previous years at their previous completions, and also how they compare as compared to a population that they selected before. So if they have done better or worse than 50 or 75% of the population. So basically in which quartile they are. In case of different questions, so this is a question with categorical variables answer, they will be able again to see what their answer was at the previous completion and how and what's the distribution of the answers for the population that they selected. And again, this will be flexible. And then there will be other simple questions where it's just a yes, no, and they will be able to see for which sub-questions the patient has selected yes or no at the previous completion and what the general population did. Thank you, everyone. I'm happy to take any question.
Thank you, Federico, so much for the presentation. I will take over. Hi, my name is Sasha Kutcher. If you don't know me, for someone that do know me, hi, how you doing? Tanya? Hope you're doing great. Well, let's start it. Can you see my screen? Can you see my slide?
All good, Sasha?
Yes.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'm here today to give you some examples of the HTC and NMO collaborations that we've done. Those two examples are not the only ones, but I thought that they might be really relative to your NMO, if you have a small NMO, or if you have any other HTC related research in mind. So I figured out that Kyrgyzstan, I know nobody probably knows where it is, but I will show you on the map in a second, and Poland will be the best for my presentation. So as promised, here's the map of the world, and the red is the tiny whiny Kyrgyzstan. They are not really, they do not have a really good health care. Therefore, the population suffers from the not enough factor to be distributed among the HTCs and hospitals. So they wanted to do the overall look of the quality of life of their patients in Kyrgyzstan. We did it through the hospital with the doctors, with the NMO participating to collect data with the patients. And I'm gonna go over the presentations that has been submitted and approved and accepted in EHAD in 2021. That's the official presentations that was presented in EHAD in 2021. The title, Assessments of Quality of Life of Patients in Kyrgyzstan using the probe tool. This is then another map of the Kyrgyzstan in a close-up. So the introduction was in research constrained countries such as Kyrgyz Republic or Kyrgyzstan, there is a very limited availability of clotting factor concentrates, which has a determinantal effect of the long-term health-related quality of life of people with hemophilia. The method was the quality of life data was collected from the patients age 10 and greater using the probe questionnaire, which are collected hemophilia related data, social economical variables, and also EQ5D5L tool that we implemented in our questionnaire. This was presented as an overall view and the statistics of the collected data on the population. Since it's a small country, and as I mentioned, they are running through some difficulties. They could only arrange to collect data from 37 patients of average of 22 to 23 years old. You can take a look at the data. I'm not going to go through entire table, but let's go over the genetics. So we have a general, which is age, years of education, and the percentage of the patients with hemophilia. Then we looked at the severity, what severities patients had. Then we looked at the treatment, and as you can see, more than almost 60% of the participants said that they are actually on demand. 7%, 7 people or 19% says they have access to some factor. So it's not some prophylaxis, almost on a demand, but they consider it as a regular prophylaxis. And you can see 16% said there is no treatment available at all. Also, we looked in the chronic and acute pains domains to see if they will self-report any pain issues that they are living with. Also, we looked on the economic aspect and employment and school to see if they are able to work or they are not able to work and how many days they missed because of their health. Also, we looked at the average EQ5D5L instrument, and the average was 0.73, which is not the highest. Highest is going to be the 1. It means, basically, it means that they have average of the general health scoring, not the best, but not the worst. And also we looked at the probe score. Probe score is related to the patients with hemophilia, but also related with the general population. That's why the probe score is really great instrument to see the quality of life among both groups. And we can see it's 0.71. Also, we had some joint questions about the bleeds, target joints, and etc. The NMO in Kyrgyzstan and HTC in Kyrgyzstan, they had no papers submitted or no poster abstracts or abstract accepted from Kyrgyzstan at that point, and they contacted us to help them to put the foot into the world and be presented in a big global meeting so they can be heard and seen. In conclusion, this study was carried out in a cohort of patients with hemophilia who did not have consistent access to the factor concentrates. Among these cohorts, the data demonstrates a significant impact on quality of life, joint health, employment, and chronic acute pain. This lack of access to treatment has led to early disability, impact on independence and work life. And unfortunately, they didn't want this to be true, but there is a fact, and this paper was taken to the Ministry of Health as well with the probe data to present for ask for support. The next paper I'm going to talk about, it's not paper, poster abstract that got submitted in WFH 2022. It's a Poland study where the collaboration with the HC, European Hemophilia community, and us as probe will collaborate together with Poland NMO, national member organizations, to see changes community needs for those with bleeding disorder in Poland. Basically, there is two groups of people, not two groups of people. There is a distinct telemedicine accessibility, and they wanted to see how the HT is performing and in how people in Poland reacting to it, and what is their quality of life related to the HTC presentation. I will talk about it a little bit more, but I do want to let you know that Declan Noon, the current president of the EHC, did a wonderful presentations, fully full presentation on this topic in our previous meeting, and you can go and take a look at the recording that we had from September 15th, where he will describe and put more visuals for you about this project. I really encourage you to go and take a look. But also, I'm going to start with the most important aspect, and it's map. Where is the Poland? Not everybody knows. It's a little red country in the middle of the Europe. One of the maps that was presented at the poster is a location of centers and relative sizes of patients' population reporting in Poland HTCs, meaning the bigger the dot, the bigger the population that goes to this HTC. But also you can see the distances between those HTC. It's not a walk to the park. It's hours and hours of travel for people with problems. As a result, 284 people with bleeding disorder, parents or carriers, responding to the Poland HTC survey. 95 of those were in 16 centers across the country, the map you just saw. Due to the small numbers in the parent or carrier cohort, only parents responded to the probe, and 195 patients are reported in Figure 1, which you can also view if you go to our website. I know it's another commercial. Go to our website. You can find all these papers that you hear today online, available for your view and download for free. You don't need to register, and I will talk about this a little bit later. On the figure, you can see the patient's request for the delivery telehealth to make services easier to access. Those are different cities with the different HTCs and how the availability works. For the gray is the physical, I think orange. Orange is nurses, and the blue is clinics. All this information available public. I encourage you go and read more, and also go and listen to the Declan's presentation on this. He did an amazing job. This is our website, www.probestudy.org, where you can go and download and view all the publications you've seen today. Download them and see, maybe they will inspire you to have some ideas for your HTC or your future clinical research. And we are more than welcome to participate and help you out. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. And we're probably gonna go ahead right ahead. Sorry. And I will give word to our next speaker, Tung. She is representative from WFH.
Sorry, is it me first or Elizabeth? I'm okay to go first.
Yeah. Oh, Elizabeth. Sorry, I forgot about you, Elizabeth.
That's okay.
So I go after Elizabeth. Yeah.
You can go. So
Okay.
yeah, Elizabeth, the word is next to you. Thank you so much for correcting me. I have a little shiveries. You know, public speaking is not my strongest side, but I'm working on that.
No problem. Let me pull my slides up. Can you see the slides now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to be talking about using Probe in some exciting new projects that are starting, and these are in clinical HTC settings. So what I'm specifically going to be talking about, and Mark teased this, is two projects that are happening in Barbados and Jamaica. And I'll give you a little bit of background first. So the two studies that we're talking about were initiated through the Sick Kids Caribbean Initiative. And the Sick Kids Hospital is located in Toronto, Canada. And in 2013, the Caribbean Initiative became part of the nonprofit Center for Global Child Health. And the goal of this initiative is to advance the study, diagnosis, and treatment of both pediatric cancer and serious blood disorders across the Caribbean. To meet this goal, part of what they do is provide training in pediatric oncology and hematology. And funding for this project was, like I said, started in 2013, and it was just renewed in 2020. And they've made some exciting progress. For example, at the start of the initiative, there were only 3 fully trained pediatric hematology oncology physicians. And since the work has started, they have now trained 5 more specialists in those years. The Sick Kids Caribbean Initiative is located right now in 6 countries, which are shown on this map in red: the Bahamas, Jamaica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, and Trinidad and Tobago. And so, like I said before, today I'll talk to you about how PROBE is going to be used in 2 of these countries with these new research initiatives, Barbados and Jamaica. So we'll start with Barbados. Barbados has had an ongoing WFH hemophilia twinning initiative led by Dr. Cheryl Alexis, who's located at the Barbados branch of the University of the West Indies. And for the twinning program, they collaborate with the pediatric and the adult comprehensive care hemophilia programs in Toronto, Canada, and Kingston, Canada. And in Barbados, they will be initiating the I think I skipped a slide. Let me go back. Sorry about that. Yes, so they'll be initiating the PROBE study through WFH's My Wpdr app, and Tung will be talking more about how to use that app. But as we had already mentioned, they have a linkage with the Wpdr app. So the PROBE data is actually collected through the app. And just a brief overview of the timeline. So almost a year ago, the project, they came to us to initiate this work. They had to submit PROBE and the rest of the work through their ethics approval, and that was approved in December. The database developer was able to open up the My Wpdr app for the participants in Barbados in January of 2022. And then we held a webinar to introduce the participants to the app, how to use the app, how to sign up, and that was in February of 2022. So I'm not going to talk too much about this because I don't want to step on Tung's presentation, so you'll see more about this, but I did want to focus on this slide on the right. So when the participants download and sign up for My Wpdr, they do come to a page where they can click on this blue button where it will take them to complete the PROBE survey, and that's how the data for Barbados is being collected. Now I'll talk a little bit about the work that will be done in Jamaica. This is a relatively new study, so we're just getting started. The Novo Nordisk Foundation has provided a grant to Dr. Gillian Worf and Dr. Magna Nwakacha, and the first grant they received was to develop a Jamaican registry for people with hemophilia and complete research on burden of disease for hemophilia. They have since received a second grant, and that's going to help them continue the work, and they will be including PROBE as part of their quality of life research. In 2018, they published this article in the journal Hemophilia, which describes the development of the registry and the work done under the first grant. So this is a really interesting article if you're interested to take a look at it. They didn't include any PROBE data here, but now they will be including PROBE data moving forward. So I'll go back to what Federico talked about. Jamaica is going to be a little bit different than the Barbados plan. As I said, Barbados is using the My Wpdr app to collect data. Jamaica will be using the study-specific link that Federico talked about, where the participant receives the URL. And as Federico discussed, you can either have a study-specific link that everybody clicks on, or you can have a participant specific link as well. And as Federico showed, and I've stolen his graphic here, but you can see the participant will receive an email where they have this link that they can click on that will take them to the consent form. So that's what Jamaica plans to do. And we're just getting started with the Jamaica study, as I mentioned. So again, you can see here in red, we have the countries that are part of the Sick Kids Caribbean Initiative. We have two countries where we're working now. We're hoping to expand to the other 4 to include all 6. And of course, we're hoping to expand beyond this initiative to other countries in the Americas. So if you're interested in getting involved using my Wpdr or using a study-specific link, we're happy to work with you to start something at your HTC. And so now I think I will pass on to Tung.
Well, before we pass into the tune, why don't the probe team take some questions from the audience? I have quite a few questions, if that's okay, Tuna, unless you want to continue the presentation.
No, I'm okay. Yes.
All right, thank you so much. I have a few questions. So question number 1. If we are interested to develop publications with probe, similar to ones that Mark showed at the beginning, where do we start? Mark, do you have any comments?
That's a great question. And so certainly one of our goals is not just to collect data, but really it is to make the data available and to publish. I think many of us have collected data for studies and research, and it sits on the shelf. So if you have a study idea, if you have something that you're interested in, we're more than happy to work with you to identify what data is available in our data set that could be used to compare or benchmark. Or if you wish to collect the data, we work with the individual countries to prepare a data dashboard and can work with you on that interpretation and the data publication. But we would be very interested in publications. If you go to our website and under the publication tab, you'll see a range of posters that have been done we've just highlighted a few countries today, but a number of countries also in the region, Nicaragua, Colombia, have also done data collection projects, and they've been published in posters, and they would certainly be available to be built out into papers, editorials, letters, commentaries. So we would be more than happy to entertain any suggestions. You can email me, you can email info@probestudy.org, and we'll be happy to follow up. It'll come to Elizabeth, myself, and Sasha, and one of the 3 of us will get back with you.
Thank you. I have another question. Do we have to be a part of any registry, for example, the Wpdr, to be able to use my probe?
And so the answer to that is no. We are encouraging everyone, if your HTC is not yet in my Wpdr, we would encourage you to work through that process and to join, but we do know that that takes time to get through the IRB approval. So you are certainly able to begin probe data collection now. And if individuals sign up to participate in probe longitudinally, so if they register with a probe user and don't just take probe as a guest at one time, we are working on a protocol where we, with permission of the participants, at whatever point in time you join Wpdr, will be able to carry that data forward. So there is no need to wait. You can join now, and when if you decide later to link with a national registry, or at the point you're able to join my Wpdr, we are working to be able to combine that data so that it's not lost. So we are ready.
Thank you. I think the next question is for Federico and Mark, depending how you look at it. As clinicians, do we have access to the data?
Federico, you want to talk about it?
Yes, and you can correct me, but our approach so far has been obviously to serve data back to our collaborators. And for example, what is happening with the Austrian registry is that they are receiving a data set that is updated, I believe, weekly, but we can be flexible on this, and delivered in a secure way, password protected to them. And this data set only contains the data that they helped us collecting, and that they can match to their registry. So basically all the registry patients that completing probe. And as I mentioned, this has an identifier that allows them to match this data with their registry data. The same is happening for the Vancouver project. And then in some other cases, I guess, we can also be able to provide access to different databases on the project that is being proposed and based on the needs of each study. But Mark can provide more details about this. I think we can be flexible.
Yeah, so that's absolutely correct. So if you are a center and you're wanting to conduct a study on your individual patients, you would be able to link that data to the patients, and you would know who they are if with their permission. Everything is anonymized to us, but when we provide it back to you, you would have a code or the access and the ability to use it for individual clinical needs. So, for example, in the Vancouver project, Dr. Shannon Jackson can use the data with the patients individually with their permission, but we don't know who those individual patients are. We see de-identified data or aggregate data only, but it can be provided back. So depending on which way you structure and how you establish your consents in your IRB, we're entirely flexible in making the data available back to you, either in a dashboard or in Excel files or whatever is most convenient.
Thank you. I have three more questions, and then we can go ahead with Tung's presentation that I know everybody excited about hearing from about WPCR. Just bear with me. So the question for Federico, with the two options you mentioned, the study specific link and study participants link, can we schedule frequency of the link to be sent? You're muted.
Thought I was muted. For now, we have not the capacity to send notifications through our app or website. So, for example, for the HAL questionnaire, we have been sending reminders to our patients. So not only the invitation, but then reminders baseline on day 4 and 2, 4, and 7 for the first completion. And then reminders when we were asking the patients to complete the questionnaire again at 15 days, 6 months, and 1 year. However, this was done through a research interface that we have in the Canadian Bleeding Disorder Registry and not through probe itself. So for now, it's on the research side the burden to send reminders and also reminders for the following completions. What we can control is when the questionnaire is available after the first completion and which kind of questionnaire. So there is what we call a cool down period after the first completion. Say you don't want patients to complete the questionnaire 2 days in a row. You want them to wait at least 3 months from the first and the second completion. That is something that we can do when they go on the website and they log in, either following a study-specific link or in a different way. They will only see a questionnaire available if the cool-down period is expired. So we can control the minimal distance between two completions. For now, we don't have capacity to send reminders. Unfortunately, this is in the pipeline, but not available for now.
Thank you so much, Federico. I think the next question is for me. How long does it take to complete Kyrgyzstan's study? And if we would like to do the same, will Pro be able to support us? The first part of the question, how long did it take? It took approximately, I would say 4 to 6 months to develop for completion, to develop the full presentations for the EHAT with it to be accepted. So the let's say the life cycle of the Kyrgyzstan study was, we had communications with the hospital in Kyrgyzstan and NMO leader. Then we established the data collection tool, which because not a lot of participants, they have access to the web or internet or the mobile phones with the applications, we decided to go with paper. So the participants will go to the hospital. When they will see the doctor will give them the probe survey. They will fill it out for him, and he will send it to us for the data input, where we will I put the data in a database, so it's in an electronic form. And after that, we ran the simple statistical summary, which were shared with the doctor before publishing. If they had any questions, the data was shared with them. Then we collaborated and working on the presentations from the both sides. And then I submitted it for the EHAD for them, and think it was really happy moment when we got accepted. So I will say approximately 6 months. Then if you would like to do the same, will the probe able to support us? Well, yes. I just explained it. Yes, absolutely, from the start to the end. Then I have the last question for Elizabeth. Does it matter to use my probe as in the case of Barbados, or the link as in the case of Jamaica, or one better than another? Is the one better than another?
That's a good question. I think that the best thing to do is we can get together and talk about this situation specific in your country and see what might work best for your participants. If you have a lot of people who often use their phones and are comfortable using apps, and you are already part of MyWBDR, then that can be a really great option. If you're not part of MyWBDR yet, or you have a population that doesn't really feel comfortable with using apps, then the website might be a better way to go. So one's not necessarily better than the other. There have been some validation studies that we're working on publishing the data now, but showing that you get similar results, same results, whether or not you use the app or the website. So it's really a matter of what's going to work best for your population.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, with no further ado, I hope I said it right. Tun, we welcome you and thank you for your time. We can't wait for your presentations.
Okay. Can you see my screen, full screen? Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so my name is Tung Yutthananukon, and I am the Data Quality Manager of the Gene Therapy Registry at the World Federation of Hemophilia, or WFH. First of all, on behalf of WFH team, thank you Coalition of Americas and also Probe team for inviting us here, and thank you the interpreter as well. I will try to speak slow. So today or tonight, I will be introducing 3 data collection tools from the WFH, which are the Wpdr, MyWBDR, and the GTR. So in terms of the topics covered today, first we'll be looking World Bleeding Disorders Registry, or the WBDR. Then we move on to MyWBDR, the patient-reported outcomes tool. And then we will be looking at collaboration between MyWBDR and MyProbe, and how does it lead to the 360-degree care. And I will end the presentation with introduction to the Gene Therapy Registry. So let's start with the first one first. The WBDR is the global registry that collects standardized clinical data on people with hemophilia. And it is a privacy-protected data entry system. It acts like a platform for hemophilia treatment centers globally to collect data on hemophilia. The objective of the WBDR is to collect real-world and high-quality data. And then in terms of study design, it is prospective, longitudinal, and observational. Currently, we collect data on people with hemophilia A and B. But next year, we will start collecting data on people with von Willebrand disease. And besides that, we have just launched the multilingual platform. So we now include Spanish, French, and Russian in the WBDR database. And we also have international data integration program where if your country already have existing national registry, we can transfer the data into the WBDR using technology. So now let's look at the Wpdr data set. These are the data set, and then we break it down into 3 modules, which are demographics, diagnostics, and clinical data. The ones that you see in bold font are the minimal data set, and then the rest are extended data set. So I would like to raise here that we collect data on quality of life of the patient using EQ5D5L questionnaire. And we also provide different functional scales such as hemophilia, joint health score, or HJHS, and the WFH Gilbert score, or range of motion, and so on. Okay, so let's look at where we are with the Wpdr. This is from April 2022. So we are working with 105 hemophilia treatment centers from 46 countries. And to date, we have over 1,000 people with hemophilia enrolled in the Wpdr. As for distribution of the people with hemophilia by region, majority of the patients in the Wpdr comes from Southeast Asia, which is accounted for 30%. The second largest population comes from Eastern Mediterranean, which is 26%. And this comes from the 2021 Wpdr data report. Now, let's look at the example of how Wpdr data can be used as indicator of care. And here we look at age at diagnosis. Again, this one comes from the 2021 Wpdr data report. And diagnosis is an important indicator of care. According to WFH treatment guidelines, section 2.2 comprehensive care, accurate diagnosis of hemophilia is very important because it can inform appropriate management in hemophilia care and treatment. In this slide that you are looking at, you can see median age at diagnosis by region. These charts allow us to see gaps in capacity to diagnose between regions, and I would like to draw your attention to 2 regions in particular. So the first is the Americas. As you can see here, the median age at diagnosis of people with severe hemophilia is 8 months, whereas in Africa, the median age at diagnosis for the same population is 47 months, or that's approximately 4 years old. So it is even evident here that between the 2 regions, there is a large gap in capacity to diagnose early. So imagine what you can do with all this data when you would like to use it maybe for advocacy purpose. And this is just one small example of what Wpdr can do. So if you are interested to participate in the Wpdr, you can send email to our team at wpdr@wfh.org. Now let's move on to my second data collection tool, which is MyWpdr. MyWpdr is a mobile application from the Wpdr itself. We designed MyWpdr to collect patient-reported outcomes data, and the MyWpdr itself aims to empower people with hemophilia to participate in the Wpdr. It will also allow the patient as well as healthcare provider, the clinicians like you, to contribute to research in hemophilia, which is much needed. In terms of the data we collect in MyWpdr, we break it down into 3 main modules, which are bleed, treatment, and quality of life. For bleed module, we collect data on date and time of bleed, and also number and location of bleed. We also ask the patient for level of pain associated with the bleed and whether the bleed was treated. In the second module, which is treatment, similar to bleed, we collect date and time of treatment and also reason. For example, is it prophylaxis, on demand, surgery, etc. And we also ask for drug, dose, and unit use for that treatment. Last but equally important is quality of life module. Here, MyWpdr is collaborating with MyProbe. So the user of MyWpdr app can share their burden of disease through probe questionnaire. And then they can also share their quality of life through EQ5D5L questionnaire. Besides bleed and treatment, as I said, I like to draw attention to health status module in particular because from the WFH treatment guidelines, again, patient-reported outcome data can be collected from generic instruments such as EQ5D5L, which we provide in the app. And the other tools include burden of disease questionnaire, such as probe. So this collaboration is very important. And so besides that, the user of our app, as Mark mentioned, Federico mentioned, the user of my Wpdr app can use single sign-on option to be able to complete probe questionnaire. So you just click on the logo of my Wpdr, and then you will right away bring to probe and complete the whole questionnaire. So there's no need to have 2 usernames or 2 passwords, just one, and then everything will be done. So that makes life very easy for the patient. Just to sum up, these are the 3 columns, which are like the pillar of my Wpdr mobile application. The first on the left is my Wpdr itself. This one gives us data about bleeds and hemophilia treatment. Then we have my probe, which is in the middle. This provides us the data about hemophilia health-related quality of life. So for example, pain, independence, education, like now Sasha and Elizabeth mentioned before in their presentation. The last pillar is EQ5D5L. So this one gives us data about general health status of the patient, covering both physical and mental well-being. So now that's all the topic covered for my Wpdr. In terms of the benefits, for the user of the app, the patients, they can record bleed and treatment in less than 1 minute. The data from the app would then be sent to the Wpdr database. So you as the clinician can build the data in the Wpdr database itself, which I will show you after this, like how does it look like. And then we also offer simple data visualization for the user of the app to see, for example, charts of how many bleeds or treatment they have. Now, this is the screenshot from the Wpdr database where the clinician will be able to see patient-reported bleed, treatment, quality of life, so EQ5D5L and probe. So when the patient comes in to see you as a clinician, you can open this page from the Wpdr and it can initiate the conversation, and you can follow up on how do they feel in terms of quality of life, health status since the last time you met them. So to sum up, in terms of the Wpdr, we have 2 data collection tools. Both of them are designed to collect real-world data on patient clinical care and quality of life. The first on your left is the Wpdr. This is the tool designed for clinicians, and it is designed to fill gaps in hemophilia care and knowledge, which exists globally. Then we designed my Wpdr mobile application, which is the tool for patients, for them to provide patient-reported outcomes data based on their experience. So both of the tools complement each other, and then it aims to reach a 360-degree clinical evaluation. So not just from the clinician's perspective, but also from the patient themselves. Currently, the app is available in Google Play and Apple App Store, and we have 7 languages available, including Spanish. So if you have time, you can read the QR code now, or if not, you can reach out to us again for more information. And then I will move on to my last data collection tool, or our data collection tool, sorry. So this is the Gene Therapy Registry, or the GTR. So let's look at the timeline of the gene therapy just a little bit. So the first concept of gene therapy was introduced in the 1970s. The first patient who received gene therapy was in the 1990s. Then first hemophilia A gene therapy trial happened in 1998, and for hemophilia B was in 1999. And this year in 2022, EMA has approved first hemophilia A gene therapy, and hemophilia B gene therapy is expected to receive approval in Q4 of this year. This is the same as the gene therapy registry of the WFH. We expect to launch it in Q4 of this year as well. But why do we need the gene therapy registry? So we understand that many countries have their registry to follow up persons with bleeding disorder, but having separate registry make it very difficult to follow up the patients in the long term. And besides, in the beginning, there will only be a few patients who will receive gene therapy, so the data will be scattered everywhere. So without one global registry, it would be very difficult to see pattern in data, especially in the rare safety events. So it's possible that low incidence events will be missed, especially the safety events. So as a result of this, a call for a global gene therapy registry has led the WFH to develop the gene therapy registry itself. So the GTR is designed to collect long-term data on all patients who receive gene therapy because we understand the challenges in identifying safety signals in rare disease population. Let's look at the objectives of the gene therapy registry. So the primary objective is to determine long-term safety of factor 8 and factor 9 gene therapy, for example, adverse events or mortality. The secondary objective is to determine long-term efficacy and durability of factor 8 and factor 9 gene therapy, and also to assess long-term quality of life and burden of disease after gene therapy infusion. So for example, any bleeding events you may have after, changes in your factor level, or changes in health-related quality of life after you receive gene therapy. And the table on the right-hand side of this slide is the core data set of the gene therapy database. So now I will move on to my last slide. With the data from the gene therapy registry, we will be able to answer important questions. For example, how long will it last? Or can gene therapy cause cancer? And with one global registry like the WFH Gene Therapy Registry, we will be able to see pattern of data and identify safety signals. So to end up, lifelong follow-up data is very important to monitor the known and the unknown safety issues. And eventually, when we have enough data, we can aim for making the unknowns to become the knowns. And last but not least, if you are interested to learn more about the GTR, you can email us at gtr@wfh.org. And thank you very much on behalf of the WFH team. And I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Chun, so much. I do have a couple questions for you. So, does it has to be all HTC come together in the country to participate or to become part of the WBDR, or it can be a single HTC decided that we want to be a part of it and they can apply to it?
Yeah, so you can be just one HTC and then get in touch with us, and then we can work with you. We will send you the list of documents that you can present to your IRB to get approval to use the WBDR and also my WBDR. Or if you would like work together as a group of HTC, we can also do that as well. Or if your country already have a national registry, we have successfully work with the Czech Republic and Thailand to link that data to the WBDR. Yeah, so it can be both options.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Another one, is there special criteria to join my WBDR or WBDR?
For the WBDR, no, there's no special criteria. So any HTC can reach out to us and then we work from that. As long as you get the IRB approval, you can use that. For the WBDR, currently the app is available for the patients who are registered in the WBDR. We are looking into options of opening up the app for the non-WBDR, but that will be the future project.
Oh, I see. Thank you. Another question, if the country currently at the trial of the gene therapy, can they still apply to the GTR or they have to pass the trial first?
Oh, that's a good question. I believe you can, well, you know, to be safe, I think please reach out to us. I don't have like the final answer, but I think you can be in the clinical trial and then we can start working from there to work with you and then to get ethics approval and all of that.
All right, thank you. Any of the speakers has any questions for the Tune? No? That's quite all right. If there is no more questions, we always you always can email us. Hopefully this information will be available to you on the Coalitions of American website, where you will see you can also rewatch both of the recordings from we had 2 seminars. One was in September 15th and this one, the second one. You can always rewatch them and learn something new, and you're always welcome to reach out to Mark work, Federico or me or team or Elizabeth or Wpdr presenter too. Just like she said, it's GTR for the gene therapy, GTR at wfh.org, and for my Wpdr, it's WBTR at wfh.org. All this information will be available for you as well in writing, and I thank you everybody for attending, for participating. Thank you to the speakers. You did guys amazing job sharing interesting points of view and information and publications and papers. I really appreciate everybody's time. Tanya, special love to you. Thank you so much. I know, I apologize. But have a wonderful rest of the day, rest of the evening, everybody. And hopefully we'll hear from you soon. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Good
Bye.
evening.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.